Russian Federation. Although Yeltsin came to power on a wave of popular optimism, he did not manage to preserve his popularity after signing economic reforms based on the principle of shock therapy, proposed by Yegor Gaidar, which entailed the end of price controls on the market from the era of the old Soviet Union, drastic reductions government spending and open foreign trade in the early 90s. The reform instantly destroyed the living standards of the majority of the population, especially the groups that enjoyed the benefits of price and wage controls, subsidies and the distribution of public property. In the 1990s, Russia went through an economic downturn more severe than that of the United States and Germany 6 decades earlier during the Great Depression. Until the mid-1990s, Russia had a system of multi-party electoral politics. It was difficult to establish a representative government because of two structural problems: the president's struggle with the parliament and the anarchist party system. Although Yeltsin was patted on the back abroad because he presented himself as a Democrat who would weaken Gorbachev, his conception of the presidency was extremely autocratic. Either he performed the duties of prime minister himself, until June 1992, or he appointed a man of his choice, regardless of the opinion of the parliament.
Meanwhile, the large number of small parties and their aversion to forming alliances left the legislature in disarray. From 1993, Yeltsin's break in good relations with the parliamentary leadership led to the Russian constitutional crisis of September and October 1993. The crisis came to a head on October 3, when Yeltsin chose a radical solution to resolve the dispute with Parliament. He called in tanks to open fire on the White House, defeating his opponents. As Yeltsin took unconstitutional measures in dissolving Parliament, Russia had never been so close to serious civil conflict since the 1917 revolution. Yeltsin then had full freedom to impose a constitution, which was approved in a referendum in December 1993. Elections in December produced major gains for communists and nationalists, reflecting growing popular disillusionment fueled by the lackluster results of neoliberal economic reforms.
Economic reforms also consolidated a semi-criminal oligarchy with roots in the old Soviet system. On the advice of Western governments, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, Russia began the biggest and fastest privatization the world has ever seen. For half a decade, retail, trade, services and small industry were privately owned. Most of the big companies were acquired by their old managers, creating a new rich Russian oligarchy that was in league with the mafia or with Western investors. As a result, inflation and unemployment pushed many workers into poverty, prostitution or crime. Meanwhile, the central government lost control over local governments, bureaucracy and economic fiefdoms, and the customs tax collapsed. Still in the Great Depression until the mid-1990s, the Russian economy was also hit hard by the financial crash of 1998. A return to a managed economy then seemed almost impossible. The Russian economy began to recover from 1999. Thanks to a large increase in the price of crude oil in the world. This led to an increase in the demand for natural gas, of which Russia is by far the largest exporter. After the financial crisis of 1998, Yeltsin found himself on the decline of his political career. Just minutes before the first day of 2000, Yeltsin surprised the public with his resignation, leaving power in the hands of little-known Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer and chairman of the Federal Security Service, the agency that succeeded the KGB in post-Soviet Russia. During 2000, the new president easily defeated his opponent in the March 26 presidential election. Putin has crushed the Chechen rebellion, although sporadic violence continues across the North Caucasus. High oil prices and weak initial value of the domestic currency, accompanied by increasing domestic demand, consumption and investment helped the economy grow for 9 consecutive years, which improved Russia's standard and increased Russia's influence on the international stage. Although many reforms during Putin's presidency have been judged by Western countries as undemocratic, Putin's leadership in restoring order, stability and progress have brought him great popularity in Russia. He was re-elected in 2004 with 71% of the vote, and his party won the parliamentary elections, with the presence of international and domestic observers. In the elections held in 2008, Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Gazprom, was elected president, and since then Putin has taken over the role of prime minister. In 2008, Russia waged a successful short-term war against Georgia, the result of which confirmed the de facto independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia,